She clicked to the next slide, a blown-up photo of the empty pool taken with her telephoto lens. This eyesore is visible from 3 different properties. It's a safety hazard, an environmental disaster, and frankly, it's bringing down all our home values. Phyllis squirmed in her chair. I'm not sure we have authority to. Section 12, subsection F. Karen slammed her hand on the table. Any feature that negatively impacts the aesthetic harmony of our neighborhood falls under HOA jurisdiction. I'm issuing a formal violation notice, effective immediately. The room fell silent. Even Karen's most loyal supporters looked uncomfortable. The fine starts at $200 per day until compliance is restored. Karen continued, her voice gaining momentum. If they refuse to refill the pool within 72 hours, we escalate to legal action. Dave cleared his throat. Karen, this seems a bit extreme for. Extreme? Karen's eyes blazed. You want to know what's extreme? Waking up every morning to that crater in my sightline. Do you have any idea what this has done to my property value? My peace of mind? As the meeting ended with 3 reluctant votes in favor of Karen's motion, she felt the familiar rush of victory. The Hendersons would learn that you don't mess with Karen Pemberton's vision of suburban perfection. But as she watched her neighbors leave, avoiding eye contact, a tiny seed of doubt sprouted in her mind. She quickly squashed it. Doubt was for weak people. She was protecting their entire community. The next morning, Karen stood at the Hendersons' front door at exactly 8:00 a.m., holding her official HOA violation notice in a manila envelope. She'd practiced her speech 3 times in the mirror and worn her most authoritative blazer, navy blue with gold buttons that caught the sunlight just right. Sarah Henderson answered the door in a bathrobe, coffee mug in hand. Oh, hi Karen. Mrs. Henderson. Karen's voice was crisp and professional. I'm here in my official capacity as HOA president to serve you with this violation notice. Sarah blinked, still processing. Violation notice? For what? Your pool. Karen gestured grandly toward the backyard. Municipal code violations, environmental waste, and aesthetic disruption of our community standards. Karen, we drained it because we're installing a new liner. Tom's been planning this for months. Sarah's voice carried the exhausted tone of someone who dealt with Karen before. I don't recall seeing any architectural improvement requests submitted to the committee. Karen pulled out her phone and began typing. That's another violation right there. We're not changing the structure, we're just... Mrs. Henderson, ignorance of HOA regulations is not an excuse. Karen held up the envelope. You have 72 hours to restore your pool to compliance or face escalating fines starting at $200 per day. Sarah's husband, Tom, appeared behind her, tools in hand. He'd been listening from inside. Karen, with all due respect, you need to back off. We've lived here for 8 years without any problems until you became HOA president. Mr. Henderson, are you threatening me? Karen's voice rose an octave. She pulled out her phone again. Because I'm recording this conversation for legal purposes. Tom stepped forward, his jaw tightening. I'm telling you that we're going to fix our pool on our timeline, not yours. You have no legal authority to dictate when we maintain our property. Legal authority. Karen's composure shattered completely. I am the elected representative of this community. I have a more authority than you can possibly imagine. Sarah tried to close the door, but Karen wedged her foot in the gap. Don't you dare dismiss me. I'm trying to protect property values for everyone. Get off my property, Karen. Tom's voice was dangerously quiet. Your property? Your property. Karen was now shouting at full volume, her carefully styled hair coming loose. This entire neighborhood is my responsibility. Every blade of grass, every fence post, every drop of water in every pool. Neighbors began appearing in windows and doorways, drawn by the commotion. Karen noticed their stares and somehow interpreted them as support for her position. Look around you. She gestured wildly at the gathering audience. Everyone agrees with me. They just don't have the courage to enforce standards like I do. Mrs. Chen from across the street called out. Karen, maybe you should calm down. Don't auntie tell me to calm down. Karen spun toward her. I'm the only one protecting us, aren't chaos. When Tom finally managed to close the door, Karen stood on the porch for a full minute, breathing heavily. Her phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Phyllis called. Emergency board meeting tonight. Please come home. Karen Pemberton stood in her kitchen window at 6:47 n, clutching her coffee mug so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The Hendersons' backyard pool, her pool, as she'd convinced herself over the past 3 years, was completely empty. Not a single drop of chlorinated water remained in what she considered her personal oasis. Ray Charity, she shrieked, her voice cracking like a whip through the morning silence. Her husband stumbled down the stairs, still in his pajamas, to find Karen already dialing 911 with shaking fingers. Madame, this is emergency services. Yes, I need police immediately. Someone has stole in my pool water. The dispatcher's confused pause only fueled Karen's rage. She'd spent every summer for 3 years positioning her lounge chair precisely to catch the perfect view of that sparkling blue water through the gap in the fence. She'd memorized the Henderson schedule, timing her backyard gardening to coincide with their pool maintenance. That water wasn't just water, it was her daily dose of tranquility, her slice of the good life she deserved. Richard tried to interject. Karen, honey, it's not actually our. Don't you dare take their side. Karen spun around, her perfectly curled blonde hair whipping dramatically. I am the HOA president, and I will not tolerate this blatant disrespect for community standards. 20 minutes later, Officer Martinez stood in the Pembertons' living room, notepad in hand, trying to comprehend the complaint. Karen paced behind him like a caged animal, gesticulating wildly. They drained it without HOA approval. Article 7, Section 3 of our covenant clearly states that any alteration to backyard aesthetics requires written consent from the architectural committee. Ma'am, Officer Martinez said carefully, they can drain their own pool whenever they want. Karen's face flushed crimson. Officer, you clearly don't understand the gravity of this situation. That pool affects my property value, my quality of life, and my rights as a homeowner in this community. The policeman exchanged glances with Richard, who was slowly backing toward the kitchen. I'm going to need you to explain exactly how this affects you personally. Karen straightened her shoulders, preparing for battle. She built her entire identity around being the neighborhood's unofficial guardian of standards and justice. The Hendersons had thrown down the gauntlet, and she would not back down. Officer Martinez, what you're looking at here is nothing short of domestic terrorism. The officer blinked. Ma'am? They knew I relied on that view. They knew I had my morning routine perfectly timed around their pool maintenance schedule. This is psychological warfare, and I demand justice. As Officer Martinez left with the promise to look into it, Karen was already formulating her counterattack. The Hendersons had no idea what they'd just unleashed. By noon, Karen had transformed her dining room into a war room. Printed HOA documents covered every surface, highlighter marks blazing across regulations. She was creatively reinterpreting. Her laptop displayed 17 different tabs about property law, neighbor disputes, and most importantly, water rights. Found it, she announced triumphantly to her reflection in the window. Municipal Code 847.2. Residential water usage must be reported for conservation purposes during drought periods. She speed-dialed her neighbor and fellow HOA board member, Phyllis Cranston. Phyllis, emergency board meeting. My house. 1 hour. Karen didn't wait for a response. The Hendersons have committed multiple violations, and as president, I'm calling for immediate sanctions. When Phyllis arrived with 2 other board members, Dave and Eleanor, they found Karen had prepared a PowerPoint presentation titled The Henderson Water Crisis, a threat to our community values. As you can see from slide 3, Karen clicked her laser pointer dramatically. The Hendersons used approximately 15,000 gallons to fill that pool last spring. Now they've wastefully discarded every drop without proper environmental impact assessment. Dave, a retired engineer, raised his hand tentatively. Karen, they're probably just keening it for the winter. DAVID. Karen's voice could have frozen fire. Are you suggesting we allow residents to flagrantly waste precious resources while the rest of us conserve responsibly? Eleanor, who'd been Karen's friend until last month's dispute over holiday decorations, spoke up. Maybe we should just ask them why they drained it. Karen's laugh was sharp and humorless. Ask them. Eleanor, we don't ask you rogue homeowners anything. We enforce compliance through proper channels. Walking back to her house, Karen felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her. But instead of shame, she felt vindicated. They were finally seeing her dedication, her willingness to fight for their community when no one else would. She had no idea that 3 neighbors were already drafting a petition to remove her from the HOA board. The emergency board meeting that evening was held in Phyllis Cranston's living room, and Karen noticed immediately that the seating arrangement had changed. Instead of her usual position at the head of the group, there was only one empty chair, directly facing all the other members. Karen. Phyllis began carefully. We've had several calls today about your interaction with the Hendersons. Good. Karen sat down confidently. It's about time this community recognized the importance of enforcement. I hope everyone understands the precedent we're setting. Dave shifted uncomfortably. Actually, Karen, we're concerned about your approach. Mrs. Chen said you were screaming on their porch for 10 minutes. I was not screaming. I was being assertive. Karen's voice already had an edge. Since when is passion for our community standards considered a character flaw? Eleanor leaned forward. Karen, I got a call from the Hendersons' lawyer this afternoon. They're considering filing a harassment complaint. The room went silent. Karen felt something cold settle in her stomach, but she pushed it away. Let them try. I have every right to enforce our covenants. Actually, Dave said quietly, pulling out a folder, I looked into the pool situation. They don't need HOA approval for maintenance that doesn't change the structure. And there's no municipal code about reporting pool drainage. Karen stared at him. That's impossible. I researched this thoroughly. You researched what you wanted to find. Phyllis interrupted. Karen, you've been escalating conflicts with neighbors for months. The holiday decorations fight with Eleanor, the fence hike dispute with the Johnsons, and now this. I'm protesting our property values. Karen's voice cracked. Every single one of you benefits from my vigilance, and this is how you repay me. By calling a lawyer, Eleanor asked quietly. Karen, when was the last time you spoke to a neighbor without finding something to criticize? Karen opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. She couldn't remember. Every conversation lately had been about violations, improvements, or community standards. We've received a petition, Phyllis continued gently, signed by 17 households, requesting your resignation as HOA president. The words hit Karen like a physical blow. 17? Who? Who signed it? Everyone who's had to deal with your management style over the past year. Karen stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is a conspiracy. You're all jealous of my dedication, my willingness to do what you're too cowardly to do yourselves. Karen, Dave began. No. She was shouting now, all pretense of control gone. I made this neighborhood what it is. I saved our property values. I protected us from becoming some run-down disaster. She looked around the room at faces that had once been friendly, some even admiring. Now they watched her with expressions ranging from pity to fear. Fine, Karen said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You want to see what this place looks like without my protection. You want to find out what happens when standards slip and chaos takes over. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Don't come crying to me when your perfect little neighborhood falls apart. As she drove home, Karen's mind raced. They didn't understand yet, but they would. When property values plummeted and the community descended into disorder, they'd beg her to come back. But first, she needed a new strategy. The Hendersons had started this war, and Karen Pemberton never backed down from a fight. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the petition. Some of us still support real leadership. Call me. A concerned neighbor. Karen smiled for the first time in days. She wasn't as alone as they wanted her to believe. And tomorrow, she would begin showing this neighborhood exactly what happened to people who crossed Karen Pemberton. The war was just beginning.